All right, so behind me is the injection pump and the 4 fuel injectors from the 861 Ford diesel project that we're restoring. I wanted to split this video into a separate video just because it's gonna be pretty in-depth, pretty technical by nature, but pretty cool. I have done a Roosa Master reseal like this one before, and I'll put a link up here at the top of the screen so that you guys can check that out. And just so you know that this is kind of my second time going through this. We've done it once and it works, so hopefully we get the same thing with the second time, right? The 4 fuel injectors, I actually am gonna completely go through. I don't know if we'll end up rebuilding them, but at least what we'll be able to do is we'll be able to clean them really good and check not only the cracking pressure, we'll check if they leak, and then we'll check the spray pattern of these guys too, to make sure that what we put back in the tractor is pretty good. If you guys are new to the channel, my name's Tyler. I've got Luke kind of floating along with me for a little bit today, although I'm sure this will be a multi-week filming experience. And I am actually currently going through a full restoration and rebuild on a Ford 861. So if you guys are interested, check that out. The rest of the channel, we have all kinds of cool stuff. I call it diesel, so I think without further ado, let's get into tearing this thing down. I want to get it torn down and get everything cleaning, and then we got to kind of see what parts we're going to need to order for this pump as well. Okay, so there's a little mark on this one that gives the rotation, and that is on the side with CC. So I'm guessing that kind of means that this is a counterclockwise rotation. Trying to keep track of some of this stuff. There's a spring on this one. So it's probably pretty similar to both sides. I guess just a different size, but all these are, again, is these are just like mechanisms for the timing advance. Okay, so now we can take this out. This is hard to get out. I struggled with this last time. Oh, wow, okay. Maybe this pump's in a little better shape than the last one I took apart. So now, I believe we can take these 2 bolts out right here, and then the whole thing is gonna slide out. This is hard. This part is very hard. These fasteners are so old school. So under here is our transfer pump. So it actually has a little fuel pump in it. Wow, that is a special bolt. I did not expect to see that. So it's actually just like supplies the fuel to the high pressure side of the pump. Look at the letters right there, Roosa Master. Sweet. Okay, so now there should be a seal. So watch as I stab myself. And then this transfer pump ring comes out. So that little dowel right there puts the transfer ring where it's supposed to go, and then you can see on here, there's an indicator, CC on that. Flip it around for clockwise. So this is a counterclockwise direction pump. This is interesting. The one I tore apart last time had spring like veins in the pump. I guess we'll probably replace those because those must be a wear item. Oh, there it goes. Okay. Yeah. See that? Whole pump comes right off. So this is literally like the entire magic of the pump right here. This is all the brains, the guts, whatever you want to call it. So from here, to separate the pump body, this tank comes out, and then you got to pay attention to the dot on that side. If you look in the head of the pump, there's a dot down there as well. So governor can come out. That's simple. washer behind the weights. And then next from there, we got to take that snap ring off. And this just comes out, it feels like, yep. So there's a couple seals on there. These seals are pretty important. We'll have to replace these. This and this, it's like a, you know, cup seal, think of it. So this keeps your engine oil from going into the pump, and this keeps your fuel oil from going into the engine oil. So if you're getting like fuel oil in your oil, these seals are probably bad. So this just comes off. These are just like a couple caps here. And then if you look, so that knife edge right there goes towards the top of the pump in this case or whatever. And the reason that is this governor arm that slips down here. It's supposed to go in there like that. And there's another little seal in here. So that's it for the pump body. We can get this guy in the ultrasonic tank. This pump's in really good shape. Just again, you know, kind of want to reseal it. So then this comes off. This is the governor ring. So, wow, this is amazing. The entire reason I took this pump apart was because on the one that I did, see how there's some compliance to this joint? The one I did on the case had like a rubber coupling disc in here, and that always disintegrates and goes bad. And this one is springs. So it's freaking sweet. I don't know why they changed the design. This design is awesome. So we actually wanted to mess with that. So now this can come off counterclockwise. So when we put that together, that's the way to go. You flip it, it's clockwise. And then these are our actual pistons. So I think this should come out. So this ring comes off in here. Slides up if I can get it. Dang. Yeah, there we go. So see how that just kind of all comes apart. So that comes out. Then these two little, it's just like a half washer kind of deal trapped in there. Comes out. Not a lot of extra room. There it goes. Okay. So this is the actual meat of the pump. So fuel comes in here through the transfer pump, goes down here, and essentially pushes these two pistons out. If you can see, that moves out right there. So it pushes these two pistons out via a little piston in there. And then when it rolls around this cam ring forces them back in, and the fuel comes out. So really a cool, simple design on these pumps. So this is just the pump head body. I mean, there's nothing, there's some stuff going on in here, but I don't think anything that needs our attention. We will just clean it out real nice, and that will be it. This is all one piece, and there's like plug channels and stuff. So there it is, your complete teardown of the pump. So basically what I'm going to do with the pump at this point is I'm just going to order a reseal kit, and I'll put a link to that in the description. And I thought I was going to be chasing that governor ring, but there's nothing like that in there. We'll just get some seals. I'm going to drop everything in the ultrasonic cleaner. We'll clean it up. We'll dip her in some diesel fuel, and we'll put it back together. I don't know, I'm kind of blown away. Just these things are so simple, they're so cool. So let's get that on order. While we have that stuff on order, let's get those fuel injectors cleaned up and start to maybe check those out a little bit. All right, so I successfully waited long enough, worked on other stuff in order to forget everything that I was doing with this. So great. But let's try and get back into our assembly a little bit. So I've just had everything soaking in diesel fuel here. Should keep everything pretty clean. So what we need to do first is get these major components back together and get the head of the pump into the body here. This thing cleaned up pretty nice. So boy, I hope I don't have to go back and watch any video. So I had someone reach out. Basically, he wants to give his tractor more fuel. Definitely giving this thing more fuel would be like shooting yourself in the foot because it already basically can't keep a crank in it. So what you do is see that this is a leaf spring, they call it right here. This is what limits how far these come out, if you can see. So that coming out, that stroke basically, is the maximum amount of fuel that you can push through. So by tightening this screw down, you'll actually squash that leaf spring out more, and that'll allow these rollers to travel out further. So like if you were doing a full rebuild pump at a pump shop and you had a bench and everything, you would do all of this. I am not doing that. I'm essentially just doing a reseal on this thing, so I don't have to worry about that. But that's what you do. You just screw that down all the way, and then you can roll some coal, as the kids say. So we got to put this cam ring on the right way. And if we look here somewhere, should say counterclockwise. Yep, so there's an arrow right there. So then you just make sure you match this arrow up. So then your governor ring just goes on here, and this little snap ring goes on there. As clean as it can be. So now we can actually go ahead and pop this back into the main pump body. There's just one seal on here. Honestly, it's not in bad condition. Before we drop that in the body, this pump has this integrated drive shaft, so we have to drop this in before. You know, on some of the newer pumps, you basically would slide the pump off over the drive shaft. That's the way it was on that DB2. I don't know why, you know, they do it one way or the other, but so we actually got to put this in first. So you can see these new hat seals have a little bit more spring to them. So there are a couple specialized tools for this. This is just like a tapered cone to get the seal over. Definitely, well, I messed that one up. Definitely a must for like when you're doing it on the machine, but it's pretty nice for this too. Alright, I think it goes this way. Yikes. If you look, that's actually a little bit eccentric there. Oh, it's a tight fit. Okay, so right here is the tricky part. And that is what these tweezers are for. So you slide this around. The one side's super easy, right? So you slide these tweezers around and collapse that seal. Then you can kind of push her in. Because if you roll that seal, you'll have problems. Oh, she don't want to go. Once you get it started, it should go. Yeah, okay. So my drive shaft's in, and I think it went somewhere about right like that. If you don't get this right, you'll basically be leaking fuel in or oil in, one of the two. This one, I'd say you'd probably most likely leak fuel in. How does that? That goes like that. So your weights go in like so. I feel like this washer goes on the weight side. So put all these in. Blah, blah, blah. And then you gotta hold them out. Okay. So now we should see what we want. And we do. And then you can make sure each one is under the perspective deal. So, But like these weights will get all different. So like if you pull that out, it should be kind of even. Okay, so now we have to go ahead and put this in the pump body, although I can tell you right now, we're gonna fish this guy in later, is what we're gonna do. And then we gotta be careful getting it over this O-ring here that we just put on. Last time I did one, I shredded one of those. So the other thing is, remember I said there's a dot on the tang there and a dot on the tang there. Just gotta make sure we have them lined up. It's like the hardest part of rebuilding the pump. So I kind of try it and just turn it back and forth a little bit. Whew. You hear the governor in there. Oh man. Oh. Oh. Man. I do think I'm really close. And then you rotate it until that little guy is at the top. So this is where our metering valve goes, if you guys remember. That's just like an air bleed for a vent wire. And then if you look, your 3 bolts. 1, 2. Oh yeah, that's the big one for the governor screw. And then 3, these are just retaining bolts. Those should be down there. Whew. We can also make sure. Yeah. So we should keep it up in this orientation just to make sure our governor weights are okay. Okay, so now in order to not lose our governor weights, we do have to put this guy in. Knife edge towards the front. So we won't lose this. We won't lose those governor weights. We shouldn't with this in here, but if you really want a home run kind of, the way to do it is just to put the spring on it so that it forces it closed kind of, you know? So I did get new transfer pump fingers here just because the ones I had were like outdated with the spring. Thing I think we need to do, yep, see how that rotor can slide out? We gotta put our keepers in back there. So these new fingers have a spring in them. The old design, I really don't know how the old design worked. So it's just like 2 halves kind of deal. The other up. And then you just put your transfer pump ring up, I guess you call it. This pump rotates counterclockwise, so I'm putting the CC up. And it should just go in right like that. And then I believe that little spot right there is for a roll pin. I believe that goes up. Let's double check that. So there's like a little regulator, your transfer pump regulator in there. I'm not sure, I guess. So if you guys want to rebuild that, I believe you just take that screw out. So basically what happens is it pumps the fuel, you know, if it can't go in, it'll just come out one of these orifices and come back in the input. All right, so interestingly enough, there's only one way this thing can go. So it's kind of cool. So the inlet comes right out towards me. I love a good poke yoke like that. Just check our governor one more time. That looks good. So now, we're getting close. Like you guys can see that these pumps are incredibly simple. So I think what we should do now is probably the governor advance. So that is all of this stuff down here. So we've got this special half curved O-ring goes right there, and then I believe this screw is going to hold that down, but there's a couple O-rings that need to go in here. Before I forget, this has to go on. So this is the attached to the ring that compresses those little plungers. Remember, that was like an eccentric lobed ring. So you got to put this in. So this is how the advance works, right? We just change the position of that ring, which in effect changes the timing, right? So we got to put this in before we put this on, because then there's just two like fluid-driven pistons in here, and that just pushes that around is all it does. Pretty simple advance. Boy, I do not like that ring that much. It seems like one of those seals that's nearly impossible. Should suck that down as that tightens. That's gonna keep that whole deal together, I guess. Not the greatest design in my mind. Okay, so now you can look through there. You can see that ball, and that's how that timing advance works. Pushes it forward. So they kind of give you the stuff in here. So like it says rotation on these covers on the one. So I believe this one right here is going to be the fluid side. So one of these has a spring in it, and then the other is the fluid side. So basically what happens is that this kit sucks. I don't have the O-ring for that either. Maybe if I were you guys, I'd look for a little bit better kit. I'm missing a lot of these molded O-rings and such. So basically, this is going to go on counterclockwise side. We know that because our rotation is counterclockwise, and they kind of mark that out for you on here. So the one side is going to have a spring, and the other side is going to have this fluid advance. And what that's going to do is that's going to fuel, as the fuel pressure increases, it'll just come in here. Fuel pressure will increase with a function of RPM, right? So the pressure will just come in here and it'll just push against that spring and kind of over advance it, we'll say. So when you look on this one's got everything all blocked off. So just real quick to make sure you got it right. So this says rotation. So this side is supposed to go on whatever way this rotates, right? So this is a counterclockwise pump. So that's exactly where this is going to go. And again, that's all just based on the proper passages for the fluid and whatever. I suppose if you put it together backwards, it would just be an unadvanced. So now I think we can get into, I still have to torque these down. I really have to torque everything down. But I believe we can get into assembling the top of the pump. I'm not kidding, guys. These things are really simple. So if you remember, this is our metering valve. I believe let's go like this. Okay. And then, so this whole assembly I did not take apart, remember? This goes in here now? Yes. Yeah, all right. So this spring, a little tiny guy down in there. All right. In some sense, I have no clue what I'm doing. Can't remember if, let's just go this way. I have a feeling it goes on this side. And there's supposed to be two screws on there. One for max throttle and one for idling down all the way. Although they could just have that off for the shutdown, now that we're talking about it. Okay. It's very plausible. There's a couple other magic parts right here. So they give you this like really thick cross-section O-ring is the one for the lid. Okay. All right. I think I got everything about buttoned up. Got a new seal in here. Got everything tight. I put on new seals under these. So I think we're pretty good to go. I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna cap everything off, and I am actually gonna throw some paint on this, just to kind of match the tractor, because I'm painting everything else. Otherwise I probably wouldn't. But that's pretty much it. You know, there's a lot of other seals in here. There's seals under here you could replace. If I wanted to remove this, I'm sure there's a seal under there. But honestly, the pump was in pretty good shape when I took it off. And I don't really want to get into like messing with adjustments and stuff since I'm really just doing a reseal. So it should be pretty simple. So I did a video on a DB2 pump, and that was a little more in depth. If you guys are looking for some more info on a pump like this, or you're actually thinking about doing one, I would maybe go check that out, just because, you know, a little bit of extra perspective never hurts. And then, you know, I did do a little bit more work on that too, so that should help you out. So if you guys are just tuning in for the DBG portion of this, thanks for watching. There's not much to it. I'm a little nervous. You know, you always hope they work, but honestly, I freaking love these pumps so much just because they're so simple. So now, you know, we'll kind of throw this to the side. Like I said, we just got to paint this up and then we'll put it back on the tractor, but that's not what this video is about. So let's get into the fuel injectors next. These are probably going to be the same thing as the fuel pump. I don't think they're going to need much, but you know, we'll go through them, we'll check them out, and then we'll kind of talk a little bit about how they work and stuff, so that way if you guys are looking to rebuild them or troubleshoot them or something like that, at least you'll kind of know. All right, so this is a pop tester. I will put a link to this in the description. You can get it on Amazon. It's maybe 80 bucks or so. And then I have the manual here, and this actually does a great job at telling me how to check these injectors, right? So it says injector test. The nozzle opening should be 2750 PSI plus or minus 50 PSI. So put it in a plastic cup, basically pop it. We want to apply 150 below operating pressure, so like 2600 PSI. We want to see how much leaks out, because if it leaks, we know we have a leak. Really the only thing, oh, okay, and then there's a leak down. So above 2200 PSI, and measure the time it takes for the pressure to fall from 2200 to 1500. It should be between 6 and 45 seconds. It's a leak down test because everyone's heard of a leaking injector, right? So let's just see if it pops and see at what pressure it's gonna pop. So what you do is you bring this knob out, and then we'll screw that in for the fine. Pump it up pretty close. You can see it's kind of leaking down though. You should be able to screw this in. So for some reason, it's opening. I don't know what's going on actually. It looks like it might be bleeding off. So, okay, there's a pop. It could have just been stuck a little bit. So, yeah, it actually does look like it's opening. Kind of about right at 2750 PSI, so that's good. So now, what did they say? 150 below. So we want to do 2600 PSI, wipe the nozzle dry, and then the spot after 1 minute shouldn't exceed 1/2 inch. So these injectors, if it was leaking, I would expect to see something by now, right? So these injectors actually don't look too bad. That's just a tiny spot. So I can tell you right now that's not gonna leak that much. So that's good. And now let's do from 2200 to 1500 PSI, because you can see it's kind of leaking right now. So it says it should 6 and 45 seconds. Let's pump her up again. We'll put it at 2200, and let's start at 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 9 Mississippi, 10. So it's not 6. We're going to 1500 PSI. So honestly, so that's good. It says between 6 and 45 seconds. So I'd really be worried about it being 6 seconds, right? Because we don't want it to. So now let's just get a good shot from it and see what it looks like when it pops. what it says all 4 sprays must be similar in space at approximately right angles to each other, so every 90 degrees. Well atomized, right about 2-inch diameter cone, 6 inches away from the injector. I could test that, but so just look. Let's make sure there's no plugged holes, right? So there's 4 of them there. They all look horizontal. So honestly, that looks really good. So if you go into the manual, it's actually pretty in-depth. They say, you know, put in a carbon dissolver, clean everything up. And I still might soak the tip in a carbon dissolver just to get the tips cleaned. They say you can lap them in, you can adjust the opening pressure, but everything on this tractor has been in really good shape. And I think it was ran with older fuel, and the older fuel is pretty good. So honestly, this injector is one of those things where I'm shocked right now. It tests out really good. So I think this would be something that I just run. So I'll go through and I'll test the other 4. Maybe we'll throw a little bit of a fireball in, and then if they look good, I'm not gonna mess with them. All right, so this one is a little low. So we want 2750 cracking, and this one's 2500. You have to adjust that one a little bit, and then if we pump it up to 2200 psi, we go 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 5 Mississippi, 6 Mississippi, 7 Mississippi. So it's not leaking down. It's really not leaking out here either. So let's adjust the cracking pressure on that quick. I believe this is the adjuster right there. But it's probably not going to take that much. Oh, why are you leaking? So we want 2750. Oh, that looks pretty good. What do you guys think? Yeah. It says plus or minus 50 psi, so I would say that is right on the money. I guess maybe you get what you pay for with an injection tester. So you can see that's a pretty good mist of 4. So injector number 2 is good. All right, so this one is actually leaky. So let's bring it up to like, wow, okay. So we'll bring it up to 22. And if you look right there, and when it kind of pops off, but see, it's just not misting, it's not popping like the other ones are. This one's leaking down too. Whenever you get it close to the injection pressure. All right, so I've had them soaking overnight in some heat. So the only thing I'm really concerned about is the injection or injector cleaner. Because in the manual it actually says to soak it in a carbon removing solution. So look, that was clear, right? At some point. So let's take one of these out that have been down in there real nice. And it actually does look like it's kind of removing the carbon. And I'm sure there's some stuff out there that would do a little bit better job, but I mean, you can kind of see that carbon's wiping right off with the rag. So what I want to do now is I kind of want to put these on the pop tester and run some of that heat through them, just to see if we can get that to free anything up. So why don't we do that? This is number 2. Ooh, see that one? It soaked my shirt. This one feels like it should though. That one just pops. Albeit low. There we go. Okay. So this one is perfect actually. It's got a nice pop. You know, we checked the spray pattern already on them all. We can check it again if you guys want to see. See, so that one is perfect. That's what I want the other ones to look at like. This is number 3. Yeah, see, that one feels good too. letting go right at, that might be a little low, maybe 2600 psi. Different. It's still just kind of misting, so let's just take one apart. Definitely, I'm kind of frustrated a little bit. I want to dive into a huge project, but I know that I should do it right. Right, Luke? So this is just a lock nut that comes off, and then this is like a jam, or this is what actually sets the pressure. There's a little copper sealing washer there, and there's your spring, and then what is this? Is this your poppet? Yeah, so this must go up. And what is that? There's gotta be more down in there. So then I believe this also unscrews right here. Oh, that will not come loose. I don't really have the right wrench either. What are you saying to me, huh? Are you saying, I'm bored, Dad? Yeah, this is tricky. I cannot get this apart. All right, so one of the problems I was having was like a normal 3/4 inch wrench is too thick to fit on there. It's literally like too thick. So I found this wrench on McMaster, Martin 1224. There is a Ford part number, but I could not find that for the actual tool. So that slides over there nice. So now we should be able to take this tip off. I feel like this should not be this tight. To the point that I'm gonna like break something. Oh, there we go. Wow, look at the carbon come out of there. Woo. So this is the guts, and you can buy this, I believe, just as replacement, which we may do. So what are we looking at? I have no clue. So this must push up on that piece, which is our actual pressure regulator. There's nothing left to our body. This is Sims NL123. So this is the puzzle now. I think this nozzle is just supposed to come right out. All right, I just had to grab that with pliers, but everything in here should be really hard, so I'm not too worried about that. So here's your injector. So the way, well, that is a little sticky in there. So maybe that's why it wasn't working that great. So the way this works is you put fuel in it, and it goes through those and fills up this chamber. And then what it wants to do is it wants to go somewhere. So that spring pushes this valve down, needle valve and seat in there. And then in order for the fuel to kind of get up through those little tiny holes you see right there, this, just like a carburetor needle valve and seat, has to go up, but it needs to go up with some gusto, right? So it just goes, and then the pressure bleeds off, and then as soon as the pressure goes away, that spring overcomes that force and it shuts it off. So that's why you get a very aggressive kind of injection cycle, right? So we are having something going on in here. where it's just sticking just a little bit, and then that nozzle might not be sealing the best either. So I just hit this with some Scotch-Brite and cleaned it up, and it seems to slide pretty good. There might be a little bit of carbon. I might try and get something down there in the bottom, but basically the name of the game is you would just clean these up, and then if you want, what you could do is you could put a touch of lapping compound on this point here, and you could just lap these two together to get them to seal really good. I'm not totally opposed to doing that. But you can also buy these nozzles too, so I'm a little bit hesitant to replace these because these are the original Sims nozzles. They're probably going to be made pretty well, but this is the only part you can buy for the injector I found online, and that makes sense now because this really is the only wear. The rest of the stuff is just like a spring copper washer. Like that stuff's not going to go bad, so I'm going to try and get this worked in as best as I could and clean up as best as I can, and then we'll come back and put it back together and test it. Oh, the worst pop tester in the world. Now I get why you would spend money in one. Stupid. Those two O-rings in there just get mangled for some reason. So I guess I probably need to stop using that. Alright, so we want 2750 PSI. I'm kind of running one here. So we're well over 3,000. But you know what? Let me just, well, I'll do it in a half turn. I should pop it once. Yeah. So, boy, that might be money right there. And then you can see that thing pops freaking amazing. Oh my God, look at that. So I'm gonna say this one's case closed. And that's really cool. That's kind of like a high payoff. Didn't cost me a thing really. So that injector fires good, way better than it did. You know, just stick with them. They're really simple. Clean them up. Worst case scenario, if you got plugged holes or if you actually do need to get a nozzle, nozzles are $50, but that's sweet. I'm pretty pumped, and I'm glad I actually dove into that because that was not doing that before. So maybe just need a little cleanup. So I guess what I'll do is I'll run through the other three. I mean, I don't need to drag you guys along with me for that. And I'll meet you on the other side when they're good. All I have to do to put this back together, remember, is just put this copper washer and lock nut on. I'll torque everything down good, and then we're going to be off to the races. That's pretty cool. I'm surprised, and that pop is like perfect. That's exactly what you want to see. Should run a lot better with that. And who knows, you know, if I just tried to run it, I don't know if it ever would have cleared up, you know. So that was a good time spent. All right, so this is the last injector, and I actually got a new nozzle for this. So this nozzle part here, yeah, see, I can't even get that out. This was just, oh, it is sticky, seized up in there. So it just doesn't want to go in and out freely. It drags, and I think these two are match set and they're ground. I can't lap this in, so I really don't know what happened, you know. So this one's Spaco. You can find them on like yesterday's tractors everywhere, but that slides very nice, and I know it's gonna seal real good too, so we can put her back together. All we gotta do is put her back together and set the cracking pressure. So like if you were doing this and you just bought a whole set of new nozzles, you'd have a really easy time doing this, because that would be all you'd have to do. Might be close. Yeah, I think I had that set before. I'm kind of limping along with this pop tester. I can't use it properly. Oh boy, that's pretty close. I think we're gonna call that. So, like I said, if you actually want to splurge and buy all new nozzles, this is a super easy job because you just take it apart, throw the new nozzles in, set the cracking pressure, and you're off to the races. I didn't really want to do that because I appreciate the original nozzles and I know they're probably pretty good, but that one was never going to be rescuable. I'm not too worried about this coming loose on me because you hold that down in that seat, so Just want to tighten it up. It'd be a disaster if I snapped it right. And then the top, I'll actually set, there's a torque spec on those in the book, so I'll go back and torque those down. Probably after I get it in the head held down. Boy, they are tight, but they were tight when I took them apart. These little caps are handy. I just ordered a bunch of different sizes from McMaster. They just help me keep my ducks in a row. All right, that is it. So I have 4 rebuilt injectors that are gonna be really close to each other. I'm not pulling, this is not a modern diesel, but I know that these are gonna run in the tractor pretty good. So there's one technicality that you could burn me on if you want, and I'm a little concerned about myself. I think technically I should flow test them only because I replaced one of the nozzles. So there's a couple different ways you go about it. A shop would flow test it, they'd run it for a minute or something, they'd make sure they all flow 50 milliliters or something like that, right? Or if you bought 4 new nozzles, that would be a good way to do it too. I don't think the flow rate will depend too much on the cracking pressure. That's probably a function of your nozzle and how much that actually flows. So, but I mean, the manufacturing tolerances on these things should be pretty good. It would be pretty poor if you order a new nozzle and didn't match the others, right? So the cracking pressure is good. They don't leak. It really should be pretty darn good to go. And I know it's going to run a lot better than it did, and it did run before, right? So probably just fine. It's older diesel, it's got a pretty good compression ratio, so I don't really see an issue with it. So there's one last thing before we wrap up this video, and that is an error that I made that we need to talk about. So I'm not sure if anyone caught it, but when I put this back in, I put it in the wrong way. I was wrong. It's not supposed to face forward. It's supposed to face backwards, because if you remember, that governor arm back there rocks on that. So just to triple check. Knife edge faces to the back, just like that. So I'm glad we went through and we caught that. It probably would ride, and it probably wouldn't run fine the same, but all right, let me wrap that up and then we'll wrap her up. All right, so that's it. A completely rebuilt, resealed fuel system for a Ford 172 diesel on my Ford 861 diesel that you guys are not allowed to see yet. So that does it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching. Like I said, this is probably a little dry and more informational, but it probably does help some people out. As I have also said, I did a video on a DB2. That was probably a little more depth, a little more relevant to a lot of people. So check that out if you're actually gonna attempt one of these. And just remember, I'm not a shop and you guys aren't either. So if you actually take it to a diesel shop, they're gonna do a little bit better because they will flow test. They'll probably have a little more accurate measurements and things like that, and they will get it back to stock. However, this pump was in such good shape, it really just needed to be sealed, painted, and then the injectors, I'm confident that the injectors are gonna be 95% as good as what you would get at a shop, right? And it saved me a ton of money. I probably have $50 to $100 in parts in these things, and if I took all that stuff to a shop, I'll bet you would have been in almost $1,000, right? On top of an already expensive engine rebuild. So I'm happy with it. I'm very confident that it's gonna run great. Hopefully it runs great for a long time, but we'll see. So thanks for watching, guys. Next time, like I said, you guys will see me paint the tractor. So that's pretty cool. It's been quite the transformation. I'm excited for you guys to see that. And then I think one more time after, we will install the stuff in the tractor, and in that video we'll go over how to seal these with the copper washers. I'll give everything a final torque, and we'll go how to put this in and time this, some of the special fuel fittings and stuff on there. Like I said, you guys will have to stay tuned for that one. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you very shortly with this painting video, and then we'll get it fired up. So talk to you soon.